Hello out there. I'm the oldest nerd. It's time once again to talk movies with Professor O, and Professor O joins us from his observatory in Oklahoma. And I like the telescope, and it fits just perfectly with talking about Interstellar this time. How are you doing today? I know you're a little under the weather, but I appreciate you being here.
Oh, little, hey, you were under the weather and pulled through. You didn't miss a beat, nor a boat. And so I just and so I thought I've got to pull through because my buddy Professor B was there every time.
In the words of Bilecki the plumber, the show must go on. But I have to point
Yeah,
out that Bilecki the plumber never did a show. So
good
anyway,
point.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, we're talking Interstellar, and this is a story that was written by Jonathan Nolan for a project that Steven Spielberg was working on. And eventually, Spielberg was drawn to another picture and decided just to let this go. And Jonathan Nolan went to his brother Christopher Nolan and said, "This might be something you would like." And Christopher did. He did his own working on it and proceeded to make a film that was somewhat unlike the films he'd done before. Now, someone told him, I don't know if it was a friend or something like that, that his movies were rather cold. And so he wanted to make something that had the same themes, but had more warmth to it. And this film has a lot of warmth.
It certainly does. And that first act, and I think, yeah, this terrific variety article that you had sent, it gives some of that background and I think he was particularly drawn to that first act where where they're dealing with the blight
Yeah.
in wherever they are. I'm not even sure. Does it specify where they are? We
I
just
think it does, but it's not really important. What they did was they mixed a documentary that was made
oh,
about the Dust Bowl, and then
right,
they put John Lithgow in it in order
right,
to connect it with what they were doing. And instead of the 1920s, this was actually the uh, 2060s, I believe, is
right.
when they set this up. And basically the soil is depleting to where they can't grow anything, and eventually when plants can't grow, uh, the oxygen will be depleted, and so those people that don't starve to death will eventually asphyxiate. And so they're having to find some alternative. Now, in the meantime, uh, the politics of
Oh,
in such a
oh,
way that they even talk about politics is that they've gone very anti uh, technological. If you
right.
have a machine, make it to do farming. Quit talking about you know going into space. They make people believe that the moon landing was faked based on actual theories that some people have that we faked the moon landing. Uh, and
They came
the
up with an interesting motivation
Yeah,
for faking the moon landing. Instead of
yeah,
just fake to be fake, they said, no, we were trying to bankrupt the Russians. And so we
yeah,
faked the moon landing to make them spend more money on their space program. But, and the teacher is talking to an engineer, Cooper,
yeah.
Matthew McConaughey, and he's a pilot for NASA, and it's just you don't tell him there was no moon landing, and so but yeah, that's
Right.
the world
He
we're
didn't
living
go to
in
the moon.
with
He didn't
this
go to the
horrible
moon, but he
blight.
certainly was one of the orbital astronauts. And so he's
Right,
probably one of the last people who's actually been in space that anybody knows about. And that's why he
right. And it
becomes
was
the
a
most important part of the film.
and in his mind, he flew one of the last advanced prototype. It's not a shuttle, but it could take off and land and go into orbit. They called them Rangers,
Yeah.
and the large spaceship is the Endeavor. But the Rangers are critical. They can amazing ships. Take off, go into orbit, land, all sorts of maneuverability. He crashes in one, and then he kind of goes back to his family, kind of at that point, and stops being a test pilot. And unbeknownst to him, NASA has continued literally underground. They've had to stay below the radar because of the political climate. Nobody wants to fund NASA, but it's now it's probably a black line on the budget, a secret
Yeah,
budget line, and it's
Black
funded
Op. Yeah,
in wherever they are, Midwest America, Kansas, somewhere. It's it. Although the interesting thing is they planted corn crops in, I want to say, Washington State, because Nolan wanted a background. Normally you think of Kansas, Oklahoma. There's lots of corn out there, but
right.
he wanted a background where corn would look strange, and so he puts it up against these mountains in an area that you just normally wouldn't have corn,
Yeah,
and that's part of the movie too, because corn is the only crop that's growing. Okra has just died out. Corn, everybody's eating all sorts of types of corn just to stay alive. It's the only crop that they can grow
interestingly, also that corn probably
in this.
has the least food value of most grains. In that, you can probably live on it, but you wouldn't thrive on it. So it's kind of interesting. But
Wow.
they actually grew corn for this film and sold it for a profit.
I did not know that.
Yes.
And grew it in the strange place that they wherever. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's watched. Yeah, because it was just a weird background, and that's one of those things on second or third viewing. You step back and you go, wait a minute, this does not look like a normal place for corn. And then of course Lithgow, the father, Cooper's father, brings it out at the baseball game. I don't have popcorn at a baseball game. I remember when you had hot dogs at a baseball game.
Yeah. And the best ones were at the Astrodome, which I've had a hot dog at the Astrodome. It's not a bad place,
Not at all. I wish they would.
or it
I wish
wasn't.
they would. Yeah, I mean, plant corn in the Astrodome, do something with it. I wish they'd bring it back.
Yeah, they're still working on that.
Yes, they
Let's,
are.
but let's say something about the background of this picture. What I think that we have the director here doing is he's trying to make a film that talks about time and uh, he wanted to make 2001 essentially.
Right.
2001 was a great influence on him, and I think also that he mentions Alien and also
You're right. There's another really interesting film back there that he mentioned as a on his background. We'll have to check that
yeah,
if we
yeah,
can.
I know the name of it, and it's just a brain cell just died, and it's Harrison Ford and replicants and
Blade Runner
Blade Runner.
was influencing him.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
gotcha.
But I think more of it is 2001 because of the look of this film. Everything was had the same kind of vastness
Right.
and a slight inscrutability that 2001 had. And while I think that there were a couple of scenes in 2001 that were difficult to uh, wrap your mind around, I think most of this film was difficult for that. I mean, other than the family angle on this, the relationship, especially between Cooper and his daughter Murph, uh, the a lot of the science, which was based on actual science or actual scientific theory, was mind-boggling, and I think that's probably because science, as we know it now, is pretty mind-boggling. There are things that we'd never dreamed of before, or had only represented in science fiction that have in the last few years, even since this film was made, have been actually discovered.
And I think which leads into astrophysicist Kip Thorne
Yeah,
telling, may have been telling Spielberg at the time when he was in it, basically that space itself, if you want to make a film that deals with the reality of space itself, it's as mind blowing or more mind blowing than some of the science fictional concepts that we've come up with because of the state of the art of space exploration. What we discovered in terms of black holes, singularities, uh, that because of all that space, it's the real space was getting incredibly fascinating and ripe for a movie. Put that in a film seemed to be the message from Kip Thorne,
Yeah.
and and then you add the time travel aspect and the blight, and all of a sudden, a script. Apparently, the one thing apparently there was a lot of the script that was. I'm kind of extrapolating, but a lot of the script that we see was part of the Spielberg project that Christopher Nolan's brother was working on,
Yes.
and then he brings that with Kip Thorne to uh to his brother Christopher Nolan.
Yes. So yeah, he worked in a way to make sure that all the science was right, or at least
Right.
all the scientific theory was right. And also, he wanted to shoot this in IMAX. By this time, most of the studios were shooting all the films digital, and they did have a digital version of this film for most theaters that didn't have film anymore. There was also a 35 millimeter Panavision and a 70 millimeter IMAX.
Right.
And one of the reasons he wanted to do the IMAX was to be able to match some of the NASA pictures. They had done a
Ah,
documentary on the space shuttle and space station. And so he used some of those shots, and he wanted to be able to integrate his own stuff in there and make it look the same. And so that was kind of an interesting way they did it. You can't tell the difference between what were NASA pictures and what were his unless you'd seen the NASA stuff before. And I found that
oh, that's
rather
fascinating.
interesting, and
Yeah.
it was a beautiful thing to look at. They used actual practical models. There was very
Right.
little, I'm sorry, very little CG to in this picture because and in fact he also had something similar to what they use now, one of these video walls that they use now in order for the actors to know what the effects are going. He actually had rear projection where they were looking out so they would know what they were looking at from their ship and things like
Exactly.
that. And the effects
Even
were put in later,
experimented
but
with
yeah,
even experimented with front projection
yeah,
by hanging video projectors, high powered video projectors, aimed at the windows. And so you're exactly right. The actors are seeing what they're supposed to be seeing, reacting to that. And but what was fascinating is those windows are all moving, because
yeah,
it's not just fixed like we would have had in a 50s or a 60s film or even Star Trek,
true,
where the camera's locked down, the viewing screen is not like it's panning left or right. We look at the viewing screen shot, then you can composite in the stars. Instead, the windows are moving like crazy, and the video projectors kept up with the movement of the windows. And every and the ships, I think all of them were built fully enclosed. We've talked about that.
yeah,
Whereas, like just like Star Trek: The Motion Picture was fully enclosed, this was too, to give the actors the feeling like they really are in the Endurance, which is the larger kind of mothership with
yeah,
with Plan B, because Plan
right,
B is the human embryos, and then yeah, and so the mothership, they where was I going with that? But anyway, and then they had a full size model for the Ranger ships, and to see some of the pictures, they had it on a crane when they landed on, I think it's you had mentioned Miller's Planet on the
right.
water, after they go through the wormhole, then they landed on the water, and that's a full-blown model. It's mind-boggling how. And then
Yes.
on the inside it's basically a full-size model too.
They used the International Space Station as a guideline on what to make it look like. And so, if you look at the inside of the space station, you look at the inside of their set, it's amazingly similar. Every inch has to be used for something, or else it's wasted space. As far as they're concerned, the actual space program, you're not going to send up
That's true.
a space station with long hallways in it. Everything is going to have to work, and they did that here. And I think they copied it very well, or they interpreted it very well.
That's a good. Even when you look at the outside of the Endurance, it kind of looks a little like the ISS with circular and all those pods.
Yeah,
And they we've talked about in films. One they do the rotation to create gravity too,
yeah,
I believe. They also have a bit of cryo sleep pods. Some of the most realistic looking sleep pods that I've seen in
yeah.
a
They
movie.
had them
They've
in
got that
blankets.
technology.
They had them in blankets because that would keep tissue damage down to a minimum, and they were in liquid. And so,
Liquid.
yeah, they made it a little less science fictiony, and they use cryogenics on people who they need to put into a coma these days in a similar
Right.
manner. But they don't completely put them in suspended animation. They just basically slow their heartbeats.
Slow their heartbeats down. And
Yeah,
yeah, that look they didn't really even discuss. Yeah, some films will highlight depending on when the film is made, but they'll like how amazing stasis pods are. But here it was just kind of accepted. We as viewers understand what they are, but behind the scenes, you can just feel that they were referencing the best science that we have now, like
yeah,
you said, to keep the body to get blankets to keep the body warm, to keep where the organs can survive the ordeal
yeah.
without even saying anything about that in the film. It's just dawning on me now, just looking at those scenes. Matt Damon when he gets up, it surprised Matt Damon.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that in theaters, like wow, Matt Damon. I didn't remember him in the
He
trailers,
keeps getting
but
he keeps getting abandoned on planets. There must be some reason for this.
yeah, that's definitely a good reason to abandon him on this one.
Well,
Whew.
yeah, I mean, he certainly wasn't a nice guy here. You
No,
know,
no.
gave them
Oh man.
a bad report just so they would rescue him, and then he was going to kill all of them. So, uh,
Oh,
that happens. If you haven't seen the picture yet, it really doesn't spoil it because you won't understand it anyway. So, we'll
that's a
just
good
move
point.
on from
Yeah,
that.
there's certain. Although the best line when he's in the airlock, he's made it all the way up to the Endurance, the mothership, and he's in the airlock, and he decides, in addition to killing everybody, I'm going to come up with a speech, a really high sounding speech to justify everything I've done. And they're saying, don't open the airlock. There comes a moment. And then he opens the airlock. It's supposed to be a moment when man wants to do what he has to do to save mankind. He never gets those words out of his
Yeah,
out of his mouth. Just there comes a moment, and then boom, and there he just floats away. And it was
I
so
love
fitting.
that, and there are some directors that specifically don't ever let anybody make a speech. Joss
Yeah.
Whedon is one of those. If you recall in the Avengers, just as the bad guy when he's with the Hulk is going to give the big speech, the Hulk just starts banging him against the floor. He never gets to finish that.
Never gets to finish. When
Yeah,
this was the speech killing moment. There comes a moment, and it was perfect.
yeah, yeah.
But I know we have drifted way ahead in the film. Uh,
Well,
the
we're jumping
uh,
around here
the
because the film itself is it's really in two parts. It's not until about 40 minutes into the film that they do any kind of space travel. Much of it is done on Cooper's farm, and we established that he is a former astronaut and some kind of engineer because he certainly knows how to adapt robotic elements. That he and his daughter are pulling a computer module out of a missile in order to put it into a combine and make it work on the farm. And
oh, that's
the
right, a
yeah,
Chinese cruise missile. Yeah, it's kind of been a low orbit or up in the atmosphere for years, just floating
yeah,
around. Maybe you get who knows what happened to China, but you gather that all the Cold War, and I say even Cold War in terms of current Cold War, U.S., China, Russia, all that's kind of meaningless, and all those drones they had are meaningless. But they go after the drone, even with the flat tire in their truck. They go after the drone and capture it and use the technology to help with their harvesters. Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's that's it. And,
And
and their heart, yeah,
yeah, that's one of the things that I rather like about this is that they have apparently gone against most technology. except for TARS and CASE, which are especially. But of course, they belong to NASA, so we don't
Right.
see them much. If it's not farm equipment, they don't seem to care about technology at all. And there's a point in there
Exactly.
where McConaughey is saying that if you still had MRIs, my wife would have survived. You know,
Right.
and she would have
That's
been
a
a whole lot
great
more
line.
patient than me. I thought it was a
That's a
good line.
which dovetails in. I got to give you, you came up with not just the circle of life, but you said what we're doing to the planet in this film. And of course, in our own way, we're doing to it ourselves right now through global warming. But what we're doing to the planet in this film is going to lead to a circle of death, as you, as you phrased it, because we're because it really is interesting to think about. We're crops are not growing,
Crops are
and
not growing
so
because the soil is depleted, and
right.
and then when the crops quit growing, they don't produce oxygen. They would
Right.
absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen, which would lead to an imbalance of nitrogen in the atmosphere, which would be toxic and or rather not toxic, but just not breathable. And then
Yeah. I mean, the other
people,
option would be
those that didn't starve to death, would asphyxiate. It's a sad end to the earth,
well,
and that's why they're so determined that they're going to find another way. And McConaughey says to
right.
Dr. Brand, just what is it that where was it we can go? There's no inhabitable planets in this solar system, and that's because they found a wormhole, a stable wormhole near Saturn. And the reason they put it near Saturn is
Right.
because by now the special effects knew how to do the rings, and they couldn't do Saturn in 2001, so they changed it to Jupiter. So he fixed that by putting this wormhole next to Saturn. That was the reason they picked that particular place.
Well, and we've been to Jupiter with that darn monolith, so Saturn is next up. That
It's interesting that
that
their robot looks like the monolith too. I find that's and in one scene, he kind of Tars kind of poses himself like the monolith,
oh, that's
and
funny.
yeah.
That's
Now, and that's one of the things I love about the robots. Not so much Case, but Tars especially becomes kind of Cooper's buddy,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and tells jokes. And
yes.
they explain that they mentioned that he is adjustable for various parameters. There's a line Cooper says, "Tars, what's your honesty parameter?" He says 90%. 90%. Absolute honesty isn't always the most diplomatic nor the safest form of communication with emotional beings. Cooper says, "Okay, 90% it is."
Eighty
Later in the
percent it is.
film, he's fixing him, and he's saying settings, general settings, security settings. Um, let's see, honesty, new setting, 95%. Uh, confirmed, additional settings, humor, 75%. Tar says confirmed, self destruct sequence in T minus 10, 9. Let me make that 60%. 60% confirmed. Knock, knock.
Yeah,
You want 55? I thought it was a great. That's
it's
my favorite. That
fantastic.
was my favorite exchange in the entire film.
Me at the very end. That is at the
That was near the
very
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 end, but
end.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
we've already seen Tars tell jokes, and Cooper really not appreciate them very much. There's
I
another one
appreciated it
where,
more than first. I like that joke, so I appreciated Tarz's humor more than Cooper did. Maybe
yes,
I wasn't under stress to that extent, but the you know it's interesting when you mentioned the 90% honesty. That tell me if I'm wrong on this. That leaves room for 10% of ambiguity. 90%
yes,
honesty, 10% of some ambiguous territory. Which and I think Tars used that 10% to not give Matt Damon's character, to not give him the settings. He changed the settings for being able to redock with
yeah.
the endurance because I'm thinking that Tars did not quite trust Dr. Mann to give him the front door key, to give him the key code to the front door to getting in the endurance.
Well, there's a good
And
line on
because
that. There's
I
a good
think,
line on that too.
yeah,
After the explosion, Cooper asks Tars, "What's your trust setting?" Tars says, "Lower than yours, apparently."
Exactly. That yeah, Tar saw this coming. He saw the
Yeah,
possibility that Matt Damon, Dr. Mann, could just have gone nuts. Could
yeah,
that nothing could be accurate. He's given him false data. He's telling him that, hey, he'd been through the wormhole, kind of to reinforce the plot in case it's been a while since viewers have seen it. So, but it'll all come back to you. But so three of them have gone through actually 12 of them went through the wormhole. We hear from three people. Dr. Mann is one of those people. He's been faking his data. He is on a planet
yeah,
more for, they filmed it in Iceland, but Iceland is like Hawaii compared to the actual planet that in the movie that they've set up. This
yes,
planet is, you can't live on it. And man is faking data, doing everything he can just to lure them
yeah.
back. Just,
Well,
yeah.
in truth, Anne Hathaway had a case of hypothermia because her suit wasn't secured well enough, and had problems with that. I think it was not. Yeah, it was while I were in Iceland.
In Iceland. That's incredible. I
Hmm.
love it. On their way down, they run into a cloud that's iced up, and that's their first indication that this planet is. A lot of things are cold, but even above Iceland, you don't run into clouds that have turned into ice. But and, and that's just a nice little foreboding moment as they're on their way down to see, Dr. Mann, played by Matt Damon. But yeah, I love those settings on Tars. Tars is know how, for all the connections to
Yeah,
2001. Thank God, Tars. And Case is another interesting computer. Case
yeah,
doesn't say as much, but I love his line. He says Tars says enough for both of us.
yeah.
I
That
think I think yeah, McConaughey says, "You
there's
don't talk
another
to me,
one.
Case."
Yeah, there's another one where he's trying to confide in Tars. Tell me something, Dr. Brandon Edmonds. And Tars says, "Why are you whispering? They can't hear you." Cooper says,
That's
"Dr. Brands and Edmund, they close?" Tars says, "I wouldn't know. Is that a 90% you wouldn't know or a 10% wouldn't know?" Tars says, "I also have a discretion setting, Cooper." He says,
I
"Yeah, but
love
not a," he said, "but not a poker face."
Nana Poke. These, yeah. Oh, they're delightful. They are the comic relief that you just need, and they're
Yeah.
also functional. I mean, my goodness, on Miller's
Yes.
Planet, when the first guy that's gonna die, first crewman is well, actually, it's Anne Hathaway that's gotten too far away.
Yeah.
Dr. Brand, she's gotten too far away, and it's so cool to actually make a functional working computer that can think, compute, obviously AI, but a friendly AI, and also got hellaciously incredible legs and arms. I mean, he's goes across the water, brings Anne Hathaway back.
That was another practical as well. Tars was
Whoa.
made full size as a puppet, and his let's see, he was voiced by um, Bill Irwin, and Bill Irwin was also a puppeteer. And so he was actually manipulating Tars, and they just they digitally took him out of the picture. But he was there voicing.
Whoa.
He voiced both of them actually, and then they overdubbed him with Josh Stewart for Case. But he operated both of them
Oh,
as puppets, and they had two. They had one that was life size. They had one that was smaller for some of the longer away things. But that's kind of an interesting little detail there that how Tars
fascinating.
moved around. And at first, when I first saw this, I thought that that's not a very believable robot. He's just kind of a brick. But with what they were able to do with it, it made so much sense. He was able to carry things. He was able to conform himself as part of the control panel in the ship. He was able to move very quickly. All of these kind of things I've never seen in any kind of movie robot before. And once again, I think they stayed with the science on this and did pretty well.
And it's just part of the seamless whole that the film is, where nothing stands out. It's one of the most amazing robots in in films, and here it's taking me this long. There's so much else in the film that is seamless
Yes.
and amazing. The science is mind-blowing, that it's taken me, really talking to you right now, to go, wow, that Tars is
Hmm.
incredible. And and Tars, he's so friendly. He's not gonna, if Tars goes to a coffee shop, he's not gonna tell the barista, I'm here to replace you. And even if the barista, Tars would say something like, "You think I can make a cup of coffee with these things? With with these arms? No." He's just the kind of robot we need to develop. That's
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
got
Um,
empathy, a sense of humor. It's just,
yeah,
and
I
I did
can't
not know
find the
about the
point.
puppet.
Oh, go ahead. Go
No, I
ahead.
just didn't know about the puppets. That's fascinating.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm looking for here is a remark about his humor. This is something that, throughout the picture, Cooper is not really appreciating Tars's humor, even all the way to the end of the film, as a matter of fact. But
Yeah,
it works that, that shows the relationship with them. It's kind of what you would say to a friend, "Oh, shut up," kind of thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Anne
it
Hathaway's more sympathetic than
works
Cooper is
there.
with him.
Oh gosh. Anyway, there's one point where I can't find the exact quote on this, but it's where he's joking about something, and Cooper has some problem with that, and he says, "I could flash a light when I'm joking." And Cooper says, "Go ahead and do that." He said, "Okay, it'll also help you see your way back after I throw you out the airlock," and then flashes a light. So clever
That's
thing.
right. That's right. They had the exchanges. And this again, it's just so seamless. It
Yeah.
almost goes unnoticed, but it's noticed, but it's just perfect. It's amazing because your brain is also working at the science is just incredible behind it. The
Yeah.
wormhole, which Kip Thorne says this is how they would work. It's funny. It is interesting that I did find we've seen this explanation so many times on films that I was thinking there are probably people that could need it. And I did think Cooper did not probably lead the explanation of how does a wormhole work, and then the scientist the explains, well, you want to go from here to here, so you bend the paper and you do it this way.
Right.
But nonetheless, you needed to do that because we're talking wormholes. So
They
I mean,
showed it
you
as a
go
sphere. I like the idea. They showed it as a sphere, and the idea that you're entering multidimensional space, and how would that look to a three-dimensional person? And
right.
so that was very nicely done there, I think, and very plausible, I would say. Also,
Yeah, yeah,
their depiction of the black hole uh, has been kind of confirmed since this movie was made in 2014. Has since been proved by the James West Telescope that that's pretty much what it would look like. So I
that's
think
what it was. Yeah.
that's very clever prognostication on the whoever it was that came up with that design.
Okay, when you were talking about, yeah, there's the because we have our known three dimensions, fourth
Yeah,
dimension being time,
yeah,
and then fifth dimension is something outside of time because they mentioned the fifth dimension in the film,
yes, they do.
which and so
And
that that's
this hyper
somehow
cube, which is actually a four-dimensional cube, but the reason that they used a tesseract,
right,
the reason that they used the four-dimensional cube was because, and Tars explains it to Cooper, that um, we wouldn't know what to do with a fifth dimension, and so the bulk beings uh, gave them
right,
a four-dimensional space in which to travel in order for him to be able to communicate with Murph through gravity waves
right.
and things like this, which they established in the first part of the film, and didn't realize that it was, of course, Cooper that was sending those messages.
Right. He doesn't realize, and it's the first. It's just you thinking how much information is packed into that first act. Your
Yeah,
first 20, 30 minutes of the film, 30 minutes in this case, just
they're
packed.
essentially loading Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%,
Yeah,
and they will use it in Act Three. That is a good point. That is,
yeah.
yeah, that's it.
A little
Beautifully
detail.
done.
Yeah, a little detail though. The books in the library, those were all Christopher Nolan's books. That was what he used for researching for the film. And so there's a number of things, if you can see them in the bookshelf, and some of them are actually brought out, but he used all those books, and so he just used his books, and so they all have meaning as far as the film is concerned.
And the idea that is that, and this is something relativity wise that man, I would need to study so much. Well, it yeah, uh, to even but to put it simply, gravity is the force that can travel through time.
Yes,
They in other words, you yeah, and so he can do things like push the books, or there's the affectation of the affecting of the dust itself to communicate through the dust lines that are on the floor that
yeah,
Murphy can see
and
in a
then the
room.
watch, and yeah,
Exactly. All of those things become method. And then he can go, when he's in the Tesseract, he can go to all these different parts of her childhood. It's all different versions of that same bedroom, the one place where he was in kind of space and time that he could communicate with her.
and
And
of course,
then and
spoiler here, the whole idea was he wasn't the one that was uh, uh, selected by the bulk beings, but it was actually Murph.
right.
Murph is the one that actually came up with the solution, and he presumed he was just the bridge between the bulk beings and her, because they had no way,
Exactly.
being in
He was
five-dimensional space, to be able to lock in on a specific time with her. And so they used
that's
him
exactly
as the bridge for that, and then he did the rest, and she did all the things. And this is something also we've in our prep we've been reading about the
she has
fact
the
that
eureka moment. Yeah.
she has a eureka moment. It's actually the two main female characters in this film that are the ones that get it done. We have the younger Dr. Brand, who finds the inhabited planet, the habitable planet, and then we have Murph herself, who uh, solves the equation needed for them to be able to lift everybody off the earth and send them there.
Right. And that's exact and it's the two female characters. Interestingly, apparently, and I'd have to look, I know Christopher Nolan's filmography, I mean, fairly well. We get the Batman. I love
Yeah,
his filmography. I mean, what he's done is fantastic. I have some gaps in it, but still, it's not like I've seen every film, but I've seen a lot of them.
yeah,
And he does take heat for female characters not being having as much agency maybe as they should in influencing the plot. And there were people that felt Dr. Brand with her idea that love is actually something tangible. The idea of love can be a force in and of itself, because
yes.
she's in love with
That transcends
Willa.
time, transcends gravity, and that makes sense because
I, I,
and her example that she gives, which is how is it? I mean, there is a reason people love. It's so that you take care of your children. It's so that you stay in a stable relationship in order to maintain families, or that you have friendships with people in order to be able to get things done. But why do you
that's a
still
good
love
point.
someone who's already died?
That's what she says. That's
That's the
exactly right.
transcendent. That's the transcendent point, and that's what she points out to Cooper.
And she's overruled in that at the time, because it's
Yeah.
almost like her love. It's like, oh, we're at that point in the movie, she's overruled by that. They just say, oh, your feelings, your non-scientific feelings are leading us back to the planet that your boyfriend's on. And then she knows her argument is lost, and at that point Cooper says, no, we're heading to Matt Damon's planet. Big mistake, but a huge mistake. But then but then it's interesting. So for those that I can see how, if they had left it there, I can see how, this is just me, I can see how they'd be saying, okay, another Christopher Nolan betrayal of a woman. But at the end of the day, um, Cooper is using that same logic, telling TARS it is a force. Basically, he's saying Brand was right. It is a force. I've been guided to Murphy, and this is how I'm communicating. That's part of my communication, part of what's letting me communicate with her. And then, of course, you're spot on right with Murph herself, where she's brilliant, and it did help to have the watch, but only one person could interpret those, could take those signals, see the Morse code, understand them, add to the knowledge she already had, which was incredible. She'd been, her father had gone away. She felt betrayed in the sense she was 12, but then she works for NASA and is able to put two and two together and have that eureka moment. So you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, two brilliant women in the film.
Despite the fact that she was a trouble student, mainly because she believed in a moon landing, I think. And after uh, they it was a meeting that Cooper had with the principal and said that her score was low, and she was not as smart as everybody thought she was. And he said something to the effect of, you use uh, waist and inseam uh, to make a pair of pants. So you're telling me that one score to measure her intelligence is more accurate than the two scores it takes to measure your ass. And after that, Murphy says, "How did it go?" And he says, "You've been suspended."
It's just perfect. That's exactly right. And that, and Timothy Chalamet, who actually wanted to go into farming, but I think he wanted to go. Speaking of kind of the dynamics, educational
Yeah,
dynamics, dystopic dynamics, he wanted to go to university, but his scores were just not quite. I think he was going to study agriculture, but you had to be more than brilliant, much more than to get into university at that point.
yeah,
If you were basically just I even think an A and B student, grab a hoe. You're going outside.
yeah. They wanted everybody to be farmers, basically, and that
Exactly.
was the
Yeah.
situation there. And it's kind of interesting that this film is so devoid of politics, other than this necessity of growing stuff
Right.
and trying to suppress NASA, and even the you almost think global warming kind of thing, but that's not really what's going on here. This is not
No,
this is not rising oceans. This is Dust Bowl. They're just taking
it's its
something that
own
happened
circle
in
of
the
death.
yeah,
Yeah.
having something that happened in the 20s and drawing a parallel for the 2060s. So that's kind of interesting
Oh,
that they go that way on this. This film, by the way, had bad critic reviews, generally speaking, but
yeah.
had great box office. It was made for $165 million. The original gross, U.S. and Canada, was 203 million, and worldwide gross was 773,889,000.
Wow.
Yeah, Nolan himself said that used to people all were all talking about The Dark Knight. He said now they talk about Interstellar. It's one of these kind of films that has gained in uh, status over the years,
Over
and
the
I think
10 years
that's
that is,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And Christopher Nolan, I think it's kind of compared to 2001. 2001 did not get great reviews,
that's
but
true.
just people went anyway. And so I mean, I spent 9 hours watching this thing back in 2014. I saw it three times in
Yeah,
movie theaters. And I gotta admit, I probably did I grasp everything? I'll say no. I
no,
think
I didn't.
maybe even after two times, I almost was hopeful it was aliens, but I gotta admit, now that you look more, and the fan wiki sites is fantastic. You look up, okay, it's bulk beings, which in a sense are ourselves, not millions necessarily, but
A
thousands of
bit
years
different
in the
state of
future.
our evolution, certainly.
Right, a different state of our evolution that are able to construct the wormhole and give us the pebbles we need to pebble our way back. And the bridge is Cooper, and the person they got to find is Murphy. And yeah, you said it. The boat beings did all that, and I'm okay with that. At the time, I remember going to films 23, and this has happened for years, but for some reason Godzilla, Pacific Rim. There was all sorts of films, maybe more Godzilla, but basically where some being other than ourselves was solving our problems. Because 20, even as late as 2008, we're just studying global warming. But it's like, well, I mean, Bush allowed that it's worthy of study, but then and it's possible. But then, of course, Obama knew science. They did not ignore science, and so you get this 2013, and we realize we really are in trouble. And different beings, giant aliens, usually they were giant sized, Godzilla, they kept on coming to the rescue in their own way. But this is kind of almost, I kind of like this in that we're going to have to do it ourselves. Whatever solution we're going to have to come up with, nobody's going to help us. It's going to be us, maybe a later incarnation of us, these bulk beings, but that end up saving us.
Well, that almost takes us back to the day the Earth stood still, where they essentially said, "You're going to have to solve your local problems before we get into any of this other stuff." At that time, they were talking about threat of nuclear war, but
Right.
yeah,
A different circle of death.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you're going to have to solve it yourselves. If it's a very good comparison, yeah. If you're going to be able to make this bridge to a better way, and you've got to be able to, we've got to find a way to have some compassion. I mean, there's so much compassion in the film. There's empathy in the film, and just being able to listen. That's one thing. It's interesting to watch them. This is like fourth or fifth time I've seen the film, and the interactions, you look at all of them. It's funny, they've been planning this thing underground, under the deep in a bunker in Iowa somewhere. They've been planning to do this mission, but it's amazing how much, once they get there, it's seat of the pants, it's fly by wire, seat of the pants, and they're all learning. But one thing they never stop doing is listening to each other. That's I really was impressed with the communication that they had, and TARS is part of that communication. They're taking science in, they're testing theories. There's really not a lot of ego in that. Mine's the best way. The only time they come into trouble is when Anne Hathaway seems like she's not scientific, uh, but yet she was right. Don't go see Matt Damon.
Well, I think there's so much to talk about in this. The religious elements was brought in one of the articles you sent me, and the idea of an ark to take what people they can to go, somewhere else and escape the wrath. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing there.
Good
They
point.
talk
Yeah.
a lot about, they go a lot in the philosophical in this film of life and death and time, and one that's kind of chilling, that once you become a parent, you're the ghost of your children's future.
Oh, wow. That's beautifully put. Yeah, that was a great line in there. Yeah, that comes out. Oh, so much in this film. I mean, even though it's 3 hours long, 2 hours 47, something like that, you need it. It doesn't. You can easily, especially in a theater. I watch. There's no intermission. You just go straight through it,
Yeah,
and it's just fantastic. And that is a fascinating, that religious article is, that is the arc. The idea of the arc is fascinating. The and then the music's incredible too.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Is this your
that's
favorite Hans Zimmer score?
yeah. They wanted Hans Zimmer to do something. Nolan said he wanted Zimmer to do something like he had never done before, and he didn't
Ah,
quite get there because there are always hints of his other stuff in this, but it did certainly have the right atmosphere for what they were doing, didn't it?
oh, it really does. It really does. There's one part that got me. Different parts get you different times, but the one that the clock movement theme is, that where the clock is really. I think even early in the film, because there's a lot of foreshadowing in the film, and I think the some of the music does that foreshadowing with the kind of a sounding like a clock ticking in a way.
Yeah,
And then, speaking of foreshadowing, I mean, it just, some of the material that's just meant for a second viewing is when you go back a second time and you realize all these people, they got some great actors, not just, to even do the little parts where they're talking
yeah,
about Murphy's, yeah, Murphy's, I forget what they call that. It's a, It's not where you have the cylinder that rotates that they end up making. Basically it goes back to the design that Michael Caine had, when he was
Yeah.
designing, the ships that they're going to take humanity onto, and then from these kind of spheres, but
They needed to
rotating
find a way. They needed to
rotating
find a
cylinders.
way to counteract Earth's gravity so they could get everybody off in time.
Right, right. I read one apparently there was a 2008 script, and in that an iteration of that script, it's got to be with the aliens' help using gravity. They basically just get a knob and turn, this metaphorically speaking, but they get a knob, and not literally, but they get a knob and turn down the gravity of Earth so that people just gently, all the stations that they make on Earth, these cylindrical stations that they make on Earth, where they can spin the station, there's a term for it, but they can spin the station, and that basically those just float off the earth because somebody turned the gravity down on earth. And that's how, because you're thinking, how the heck did we get this incredible station where they can even play baseball on this station and grow crops in this cylindrical, yeah, how do we get that to Saturn? In the 2008 script, apparently these stations are built on earth and just kind of float in that general direction,
Yeah.
which
So
isn't that, yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just looking. Yeah, that was to me a fascinating concept, and the idea of this concept. I was going to see if it's going to jump Cooper Station. This fandom thing is I'm using fandom research right now, hitting what I had. It's called Cooper Station, and what is it actually called? The design of Cooper Station. It's residential. Oh, it doesn't give the overall. Come on, battling. Uh oh well. But there's for these cylinders that they made, there's actually a term that it's, and I know that my friend Bob from Norway is telling me that term right now, but I can't come up with that term.
Yeah, I know
It's not, there's the Dyson sphere idea that
right.
was in Star Trek, where it's a globe, and then you would live inside that globe. That's kind of like the who else made the inside of the globe that came from that was the Dyson sphere, and then you could see but it's a sphere. These are cylinders, and there's a term for the cylinder, and the other term for the Dyson sphere, which is the globe. Uh, what is the Arthur C. Clarke had a couple of good books about that. But anyway, we'll
Well,
just have to post that on a comment
yeah,
as
yeah.
to what that is.
Somebody can explain that to us. That
But
works out.
yet again, you got the robots, how well thought out they are,
Yes.
physically thought out. AI terms, they're thought out, they're enacted, and this the entire movies could revolve around the idea of this cylinder that we see in like 5 minutes at the end of the movie that they're living in, and yet the effects for that were incredible. It just fits in that that incredible effect is just one minor part of this film, and it fits in, and it's just part of a cohesive whole. And
Yeah.
yes, they're going to be living on those things till they can all go through the wormhole safely. And I
What
guess they're going to be head. Yeah, what were you going to?
what's amazing about this film though is that it is almost 3 hours long. And it
Right.
packs every minute with new information. That's why we're having so much trouble remembering most of it. It has some great moments in it, and you can watch it 100 times and still get something new out of it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing about this film, that it is,
It's
and probably
mind-boggling.
why it is, and probably why it is so popular now. Because you saw it several times theatrically, but these days all you need is Netflix or however you get it these days, and then you can watch it as many times as you can stand, and every time you watch it, you find something different. And only great films do that. There are some that are a lot shorter than
Great
this, a
point. That's
lot
a
less
great point.
technical than this, but this 2001 and many other movies we reviewed are those that can be viewed over and over, and you always see something new in it.
you could take anyone, you could take 20 concepts in this film and build one film around it. And we've all, or a book we've seen. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, Wrinkle in Time, it's a great movie, great book, but I think it's built around the idea of just the Tesseract. I mean, it's way
Yes.
more than that. But the Tesseract is just one part of this film, just like the cylinders, just like tars. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
The and there's a series that came out, I
I
think,
would have loved to have seen a
three
sequel to
years. It
this
started maybe.
of what happened to Cooper when he went
Oh,
to find Brand.
you know it. You would. I would love to see. This is. Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking that. Yeah, that's. I would love to see that. Did you ever see The Expanse? The series.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm
Excuse
sorry
me.
about
It kind of makes you
bless you.
wonder. And thank you. You know, as much this is such hard science with Kip Thorne, doing the hard science. It makes you wonder. It seems like I would say The Expanse has been set up by this film. It's The Expanse comes out
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 years later, and it's hard science, just like this film. And it feels like that you have one, you get the other.
Well, if you read the James S. A. Corey books, they're very
Oh,
detailed on that as well. So I just got for Christmas their Cibola Burn. This is
wow.
the fourth in their Expanse series. So I haven't
Oh,
read it yet, but that's my next thing to do.
I found the first book in those little loaning libraries. There's one beside where you walk across this book. It's like a bookshelf sitting in a yard, and you can take a book or give a good book back. And I found that the first book for that after I'd seen the series, and I knew my son's name is Murphy, and my youngest son. In fact, he's during this movie they were all kidding him, Murphy, Murph, 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 because they say Murph so many times in the movie. And if you go in there and you're named Murphy, that's going to affect you in a certain way.
Yeah.
But I gave
It
Murphy. I
might have
found that
helped him.
book.
It might have helped him to know that the character was originally a boy.
That's right. It was going to be a boy. That's exactly right. So yeah, I found that book in a little one of those little lending libraries, and I gave it to Murph, and I'm never going to see it again. I'm gonna, but yeah, it sounds like a great read.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
was
story about books. A friend of mine once said, older friend said, if you ever loan a book, don't expect to ever get it back.
no,
And
no, don't ever expect it.
I found that in most cases.
Well, and of course, the corollary to that is all the books people have loaned me. They're now part of my library. Yes, it's, some of them are. I try to, but there's more than a few.
Those are the ones you don't throw away
You kind
because
of
you
lose
say, one of
track.
these days I'm going to give that back.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to find the wormhole they're living in now. But
We only have a couple of minutes
one
before
last
we
thing.
need to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
With that in mind, what about the actors? I was thinking they get
Oh, yeah.
just there's great actors in small parts. Michael Caine, I love students, the students seeing Michael Caine in these older Christopher Nolan films, because
Yeah.
then you can go, oh my goodness, then they can latch on to this guy's got a body of work before he became Alfred the Butler. He
Yeah.
was, so many great and here he is still acting for I just love it. And of course Cooper's played by three actors. uh Murphy, I'm sorry,
Murphy is,
Murphy
yeah. Jessica
is played by
Chastain,
three actors.
and
uh
Ellen Burstyn, wonderful, you know,
yes.
4 minutes on film, I think, and wonderful performance there. And Mackenzie Foy, who plays the young Murph, I mean, the range of emotion is pretty
Oh,
good for that young an actor. Same thing with Timothy Chalamet, that he was over the top with his thing, especially in the recorded message that Cooper sees. And it was said in the Variety article we were reading this morning that there was he went a little farther than the director wanted him to go, but he decided that it worked anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly he. And the director side, for him to bring. I'm glad you got. was trying to catch that apparently, young Timothy Chalamet, who's like 15, brings more, adds some more ideas, and Christopher Nolan realizes I can use these and decides to use them. The one thing he didn't use apparently though was some of those when he's reading those messages. That's where we started this whole thing. We were even before the show we were talking about it's Miller's planet with the water. Then there's that 30-year length of time where the astronaut I believe that is that I was thinking the astronaut that was stranded on
That was
the
Man.
astronaut that's stranded on the for 30 years and then he comes back and he's aged and it was just so well done. I believe that's Bill or nope
Oh, excuse me.
hang on, Romilly. Romilly. That yeah. David Gayesi. Yeah, we're talking
Oh,
about
okay,
and
okay,
so
okay, yeah,
yeah, the 30-year gap and one of the most emotional parts of this film, among many, is when Cooper gets the messages, 30 years of messages of realizing you've missed your kid's childhood, and I mean
yeah.
tons of things. And yeah, so Timothy Chalamet is. Am I correct in saying he was bringing extra to that part? Is that what the that
Yeah,
when he? Yeah,
yeah.
and Nolan. Yeah, keep going. What were you?
And Casey Affleck did well too as the
Oh, he
older Tom.
did as the older Timothy
Yeah,
Chalamet.
and it's interesting that just about all of these people in the main cast were Oscar winners. I think.
Mm.
Who was it? John Lithgow, I think, has only been nominated, but otherwise, everybody here has won an Oscar at one time or other before or after this film.
Oh, and I realized in our discussion of this that we've these actors were so good, they just became the parts that they were in
Yeah.
talking about Murphy, where she's a young woman, a NASA scientist. We
Yes.
hardly mentioned Jessica Chastain's name. You just think of her as Murphy, and she's
Yes.
at doing nothing but trying to solve the equation. And when Michael Caine, it's brutal because Michael Caine, you want to love Michael Caine. He's generally played a decent guy. He started off as a smart aleck British secret agent, a real smart aleck, in the
Yeah.
'60s when he started his career. But by this time, you just respect him so much, and for him to be on his deathbed saying everything I told you was a lie, and then to watch Jessica Chastain's reaction to that, it's unbelievable. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the great acting. Yeah, and yeah, Wes Bentley dies first. His name is Doyle. Great acting. Bill Irwin, the puppet,
Yeah.
and David Gayassi as Romilly. Terrific part. I have not seen
Yeah.
him in a lot of other things that I can think of, but he was fantastic. And he ages 30 years and he works it great. In those 30 years, he even goes back to sleep, but he decides he thinks they're dead
Yeah.
on the planet.
It's interesting
And
when you have that many people in the cast too that you can give
yeah,
them all something good to do. Of course, it's a long film, but still, we've seen long films that have only had like one person and everybody else was kind of the furniture, and so they made good use
yeah,
of all
exactly.
these actors and all excellent actors that they were. But I think we need to.
Topher Grace.
Well, yeah,
Oh yeah, he plays Murphy's older Murphy's not old, but her helper,
yeah,
and then she kisses him when in the Eureka moment. But he's got a good part, and
yes,
I mean he's yeah
he's gone on to
he's
do
even
good things.
arguing.
So they, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. This film, you are blessed to be in this film. That's but yeah, what a cast.
Yeah, it's a long film to get through, but it's worth seeing again. So we recommend our thumbs up from both of us, I suppose.
And we only spent half the time of the length of the film.
We spent the rest of that time figuring out how we were going to talk about this. We often will talk before these things happen. Usually, maybe 10 or 15 minutes before we go live to talk about how we're going to handle this. We've been talking about this all week, and
Yes.
this film deserved a little more consideration than we give it
Oh.
with a little 15-minute chat. So we we have put our time in on this one, and hope that you enjoy the film as you see it.
Oh
So,
man.
and okay, so what do we got left? Oh, next film, next film. Let's talk about Time Bandits next week.
Wow.
Terry Gilliam's first solo direction, I believe, and once again another ensemble film that talks about time travel and other philosophical things that you wouldn't expect out of a comedy.
Right. Right. That's exactly right.
So I hope you get well soon, Professor O, and
Thank you.
we look forward to seeing you on our next outing next week. And thank you for joining us. So join us next time. We will have another review of Starfleet Academy coming up on Saturday. We'll be back with another review of Farscape on Tuesday, and then back here next week, like I said, with our review and chat on Time Bandits. So until then, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't go far.